A dowry of 30 million RMB, an asking price of 50 million USD over an overseas phone call, one egg weighing 3.5 micrograms, and 50 million USD in cash weighing 2.5 tons. These numbers come from a 5,000-word long-form article that blew up the entire internet today. The person who wrote this article is named Justin Sun, a former crypto mogul and founder of TRON, who bid on a lunch with Warren Buffett, ate a banana worth $6.2 million, rode Bezos' rocket, and went to space. And the title of the article is very direct: My Girlfriend, Jing Tian. On the very same evening he posted the article, his attorney, Zhang Qihuai, officially confirmed on Weibo that Justin Sun had filed a civil lawsuit against Jing and her parents. The amount involved is over 30 million RMB. The case has been legally filed, and he has also applied for property preservation to prevent the defendants from transferring, concealing, or selling off assets during the litigation process. The lawyer subsequently confirmed to Sina Entertainment that this Jing is the well-known Chinese actress Jing Tian. 12 minutes later, Jing Tian's studio released a statement calling it a panzer, staged accident extortion attempt that uses an artist's reputation as leverage. On one side there's a lawsuit, on the other there's an accusation of extortion. What exactly was written in this article? In my opinion, it's quite a juicy read. It not only contains intimate details about the two's relationship, but also bizarre stories about the travels of celebrities and the wealthy. So today, I want to first share with you all the most explosive parts of this article. I will pin the full text in the comment section, so those who want to read it can check it out for themselves. Then, let's talk about the person who is actually worth discussing today. Who exactly is Justin Sun? Once you understand him and his background, you'll realize that this incident isn't just some simple celebrity gossip. The story begins in 2007, the year Justin Sun was admitted to Peking University through their independent recruitment program, thanks to winning first prize in the National New Concept Writing Competition. It was also that year that a pop-up ad appeared on his QQ featuring Jing Tian as the spokesperson. Struck by that smiling face, he went on to Xiaoné, a social networking site, to find her and tried to add her as a friend. He typed and deleted and typed, fussing over it for a full 40 minutes, only to end up sending just 2 words: hello. She didn't accept the request. From that moment on, Jing Tian became the unattainable white moonlight in Justin Sun's life. For many years afterward, he kept that QQ pop-up ad photo. Whenever he accomplished something, he would ask himself, at what level of success would she accept my request? He thought about it when he made his first billion, and he thought about it again at 10 billion, but eventually he just stopped thinking about it altogether. But 19 years later, Jing Tian finally appeared in his friends list. They met for the first time at the Rosewood Hotel in Hong Kong, where Justin Sun took her to see that banana, the one by Italian artist Catalan, comedian, where a banana is taped to a wall. He had spent $6.2 million to buy this artwork, and later he ate it right in front of the reporters. Later, when the two of them went to see a movie, Jing Tian said that there couldn't be anyone else in the screening room besides the two of them. Well, buying out the whole theater isn't hard, but the tricky part is, what do you do about the tickets that have already been sold? The assistants and bodyguards were waiting at the cinema entrance ahead of time, and whenever they encountered audience members arriving with tickets to watch the movie, they would just hand them a stack of cash directly. A couple with their child arrived. The child was already holding popcorn high up at the entrance, ready to go in, but then an assistant handed over a stack of money. The child didn't understand why they couldn't go in, but the adults took the money, said thanks, and left without asking any questions. There were 26 people who took the money that day. What went viral all over the internet was the following passage, which I will retell in the first person. At night, I was fondling her breasts and she pushed me away. I pulled my hand back, ready to say something. She sat up and rummaged through her bag, pulling out a small pouch. Inside was a row of items, like a set of tiny tools. She said, "Your fingernails are scratching me, it hurts." She placed my hand on her lap and filed them one by one, starting with the coarse side, then switching to another side, then another. After filing for a while, she would hold them up to the light to check, then continue filing. It took her nearly an hour for all 10 fingers. In the middle of it, she taught me that this side is for shaping, this side is for polishing, and for the last side, you shouldn't rub back and forth, but go in one direction. After she finished filing, she turned my hand over to look at it and touched it. She said, "All right, go ahead and touch. You can touch wherever you want." This part is just so specific that it's hard to believe it was made up. Friends, remember this feeling because we have more coming up later. Next is the part of the article with the most information. What is it like for celebrities and top billionaires to travel? She said there are too many people in Hong Kong and she would be recognized, so let's go out for a walk. So she pointed to Tenerife on the map. This is a small island in the Atlantic Ocean off the northwest coast of Africa. As a result, by noon the next day, a group of 30 people set off with an Airbus 330 waiting for him. In the plane's bedroom, Jing Tian said, "Don't call me Jing Tian anymore. Call me Mom." "Okay, Mom." For the rest of the article, Sun Yat-sen referred to Jing Tian exclusively as Mom. After landing, the captain came over and said, "Boss, they wouldn't let us land on the island at first. They'd never seen such a large private jet." Once on the island, the usual rules applied. No one else was allowed to be around. The Ritz-Carlton on the island faces the Atlantic Ocean, and the floor-to-ceiling windows are huge, but Jing Tian can't sleep with even a sliver of light. So the assistants used black tape to cover the entire room. It was bright as day outside, but inside it was as dark as a solitary confinement cell. The tape would fall off as soon as it was exposed to the sun, so they had to reapply it every single day. There were 11 assistants in total, arriving at 6:30 in the morning and only allowed to leave once the two of them were asleep. Two girls were in charge of the taping. One handled the window frames, and the other took care of the indicator lights on the air conditioner and outlets, checking everything 3 times after finishing. They used 50 rolls of tape. Later, the two girls figured out from experience that it was easy for the tape to fall off if applied after 3 o'clock p.m. because the glass was hottest at that time, so they switched to applying it in the morning. This detail is also very specific. At night, the two of them watched the stars on the mountaintop, and even wearing padded jackets, they were still cold. Jing Tian then said, "Let's go to the Maldives." But the airport in the Maldives is too small, so they had to switch from their wide-body aircraft to smaller planes mid-journey. The small planes couldn't fit the luggage for the group of 30 people, so what could they do? They ended up splitting into 3 planes, and Jing Tian had just one suitcase that took up an entire plane by itself, because she said she didn't want it to be put together with anyone else's luggage. The hotel was sensational, famous for its no news, no shoes philosophy. She had a team of 26 people, including butlers, bodyguards, and assistants, with 2 drone operators following from a distance. The assistants started taping things up again, the air conditioner lights, the outlet lights, over and over. Finally, there's the money part. At sensational, he said, "Now we're family. My parents raised me all these years, so you need to pay a bride price." She said, "Okay." He provided 2 names and 2 bank accounts asking for 30 million RMB, and she transferred it. On January 2nd of this year, Sun Yat-sen proposed in the Maldives. The ring was in Hong Kong, you couldn't buy one on the island, so an assistant had to take a seaplane to Malay to pick it up. Jing Tian said the diamond ring was too small, but it was fine, they could get a bigger one later. Back in Hong Kong, she met his parents. That evening, she said the 2 families needed to meet to prepare for the wedding. It was those same 2 accounts again, asking to transfer as much as possible. She said she could only do 1 card a day with a limit of 1 million. She said that was too slow and told him to use 5 cards, rotating between the 2 accounts. When it came to the 3rd card, Sun Yat-sen hesitated for a moment, but he finished the transfer anyway. An entire floor of the hotel was booked out, costing $1 million for 30 days. On the 8th day, Jing Tian called and asked for $50 million. Sun Yat-sen said, "Let me think about it." So he used Claude Code to run his API against all his cash assets, and the conclusion was that taking out $50 million wouldn't have any impact on him at all. He ran the simulation again and entered the question into Claude Code, and Claude said not to give her the $50 million. Sun Yat-sen wrote, "I have never refused her, not because I'm generous, but because I'm afraid of the answer that might come the next second." In the end, he didn't give her the money. On the 8th day, Jing Tian flew away on that Gulfstream 7700 that had been prepared specifically for her. At the end of the story, he wrote, "If I had given it to her that day, would she have stayed?" To the men watching, do you think she would have stayed? If you think she would, type would in the comments section. If you think she wouldn't, type wouldn't. At the end of the article, it says, "This story is purely fictional. Any resemblance is purely coincidental." In this long article, there are many other details, including that Jing Tian has a large tattoo, which was done for an athlete, and this athlete is a forbidden topic that cannot be mentioned around her. It also includes details on how the 2 of them discuss things like going for surrogacy and so on. Due to time constraints, I can't go into all of that specifically, so I've pinned the full, rather long article in the comments section for you all to read on your own. Having said that, I'd really like to hold a poll. Friends, what do you think about the authenticity of this article? If you think it's purely fiction, type a 1. If you think it's 70% true and 30% false, type a 2. If you think it's basically all true, type a 3. If you prefer not to comment and want to wait for court evidence before making a judgment, type a 4. Let's see which one you all are most likely to choose. I'm inclined to believe that this is basically true. The last sentence, purely fictional, is a legal bulletproof vest, used to avoid potential legal risks and prevent any retroactive accountability. After all, this isn't a leak, nor does it count as smearing or framing. It's purely fictional, so you can't blame me, right? And Jing Tian Studio's response is also quite interesting. Reputation is an artist's life, and also their Achilles heel. But we have the courage to say no to this kind of peng sur behavior that uses an artist's reputation as leverage, and we will leave everything to the court. But an interesting detail here is that she said she would leave everything to the court. If the protagonist of this story weren't Jing Tian, she would definitely have sued the other party for defamation directly. But what she has submitted to the court now is this jurisdictional objection. What exactly is that? And what does it indicate? To understand why Jing Tian submitted a jurisdictional objection to the court, we first need to look at a few confirmed pieces of public information. First, on the evening of August 27th, the lawyer Zhang Qihuai had already released a detailed statement on the entire case in his capacity as Sun Yuchen's attorney, confirming that a civil lawsuit had been filed against Jing and her parents as defendants. Second, the amount involved in the case is approximately over 30 million RMB. Third, the case has already been legally filed. The plaintiff has also applied to the court for property preservation. Furthermore, Zhang Qihuai confirmed to Sina Entertainment that this Jing is indeed Jing Tian, and stated that the two parties were previously a couple, had discussed marriage, and broke up around the first half of this year. The main demand is the return of the betrothal gifts. He also specifically added that the indictment does not currently involve the issue of surrogacy. Under these circumstances, the defendant, which is Jing Tian and her parents, has already filed an objection to jurisdiction in accordance with the law, and this objection is still being reviewed by the court. What is this exactly? And what kind of issues does this indicate? The amount of information behind this is huge. An objection to jurisdiction, to put it simply, means the defendant believes that this particular court has no authority to hear the case. In simple terms, it means Jing Tian is telling the court that received the case that he filed it in the wrong place and that your court has no standing to handle this case at all. So why would she want to raise this objection to jurisdiction? First of all, it's to delay time and buy space for defense and negotiation. Once the defendant raises an objection to jurisdiction, the court must pause the proceedings on the substantive content of the case, that is, whether the 30 million should actually be repaid, and instead go back to first reviewing whether this court should be the one handling it. If the court of first instance rules to dismiss the objection, it means that this court is authorized to handle and hear the case, but Jing Tian can still continue to appeal to the intermediate court. With this back and forth, just the procedural step of determining which court has jurisdiction can drag on for 3 to 6 months or even longer. This allows the defendant to buy more time to do things like organize evidence or negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the plaintiff. This is the core litigation tactic behind an objection to jurisdiction. Next, one also has to deal with the issue of property preservation. Now that Sun Yuchen has applied for property preservation, it means that over 30 million that he gave to Jing Tian has been frozen. If this objection to jurisdiction is upheld, the case will be transferred and the property preservation might be reevaluated or modified, which could potentially alleviate the situation of Jing Tian's assets being frozen. Based on current info, the lawsuit, amount, and filing are real. This aligns with April's reports that a celebrity, surnamed Jay, allegedly demanded over 100 million from her wealthy boyfriend for surrogacy. That figure is 50 million US dollars, or over 100 million RMB. Then, in May, an agreement from an overseas surrogacy agency bearing Jing Tian's signature was leaked. Along with it, transfer records for 30 million, labeled as nutritional fees, hardship fees, and so on, were also released. Taking all of this into account, from the solid evidence provided by Justin Sun's lawyers to the jurisdictional dispute raised by Jing Tian's side, it is almost 100% certain that the female lead in this super dramatic saga, which spans the entertainment industry, overseas surrogacy, and wealthy family relationships, is undoubtedly Jing Tian. Moreover, it seems that both sides have reached a point where there's no room for reconciliation. So, how will this grand drama unfold? Will they completely tear off the mask and fight until both sides are destroyed, or will they reach a settlement behind the scenes? The waters behind this might be even deeper than we imagine. Because Jing Tian is someone with a background that is far from ordinary. She has always been an enigmatic presence in the entertainment industry. She entered the Beijing Film Academy in 2007, and her debut was the peak of her career: The Warring States, The Great Wall, Kong Skull Island, and Pacific Rim Uprising. She's collaborated with top superstars like Sun Heng-lei, Francis Ning, Kim Hee-sun, Andy Lau, Zhang Yimou, and even Hollywood's Matt Damon. There's a saying in the industry: the A-do who can't be propped up, the Jing Tian who can't be made famous. Her resources were top tier, yet she just wouldn't become a star. What kind of man stands behind her, capable of pushing her resources to the ceiling even when she couldn't be made famous for so long? The background behind this is certainly not simple. We previously dedicated an entire episode to breaking down all the resources and big shots behind Jing Tian after she became famous. For those who haven't seen it, you're welcome to go watch that episode after finishing this one. On the other hand, we have to look at the man who paid the money, Justin Sun. Is there any chance he would let Jing Tian off the hook? But before we discuss whether he'll show any mercy, we first need to figure out what kind of character this young entrepreneur, Justin Sun, who is famous in the crypto circle, really is. In July 1990, Justin Sun was born in Xining, Qinghai, and later moved to Guangdong with his family. The first turning point in his life came thanks to a pen. In high school, his grades were once at the bottom, but he was obsessed with literature and viewed exam-oriented education as a total disgrace. Then he went and participated in the National New Concept Writing Competition, the same one that launched Han Han and Guo Jingming back in the day, and ended up winning first prize. No wonder those little essays of his are so well written. In 2007, he was admitted to Peking University through independent recruitment, first entering the Chinese department and later transferring to the history department. Once he got into Peking University, he quickly discovered his true talent, not writing, but igniting controversy. In 2010, he wrote an article titled "Whoever Doesn't Donate is an Idiot," which went viral on Renren. In 2011, news broke that Peking University was planning to hold academic consultations for 10 categories of students, including those with academic difficulties, extreme ideologies, or psychological fragility. Sun Yuchen fired off several articles in fierce criticism, using extremely intense language. With this outcry, his popularity skyrocketed. In July of that year, he and Jiang Fengzhu, who was at Tsinghua University at the time, appeared on the cover of Yazhou Zhoukan with the headline "The Elite of China's Post-90s Generation." As soon as the interview ended, he changed his Renren username to Sun Yuchen Yazhou Zhoukan Cover Figure. Folks, remember this detail? If you understand this move of his, then you can basically understand almost everything he has done in the 15 years that followed. Let's continue. For Sun Yuchen, public attention doesn't bring him the vanity and fame it brings to ordinary people. Instead, it's an asset that he can directly monetize. In 2011, he graduated from Peking University a year early and went to the University of Pennsylvania to pursue a master's degree in East Asian Studies. At UPenn, he did 3 things. First, he filled his elective courses with classes from the Wharton School on investment, entrepreneurial management, and venture capital. Second, he and his classmates created a video program for international students that became a huge hit on Youku and Bilibili. Third, and most importantly, he first heard about Bitcoin on Reddit and in campus TED communities. At that time, Bitcoin was only worth $12 or so per coin, so he quickly tested the waters with a small amount and then gradually went all in. This was the early accumulation of Justin Sun's wealth. At the end of 2013, he made a life-changing decision. He gave up his advanced studies at law school and joined Ripple Labs in Silicon Valley, serving as the chief representative for Greater China. And what Ripple did was cross-border clearing. In layman's terms, they wanted to use blockchain to replace the old system used for bank-to-bank transfers. This role made Justin Sun one of the first blockchain evangelists in China, and it also allowed him to build his initial network and earn his first pot of gold in this circle. In 2014, he returned to China to found Rebo Technology and secured investment from the world-leading investment firm IDG. In 2015, at just 25 years old, Justin Sun was successfully named to the Forbes 30 Under 30 China list and became the only post-90s generation student in the first cohort of Hupan University, founded by Jack Ma. However, it was also around this time that criticism and skepticism from the outside world began to emerge. People said his PR was extremely high profile, yet his products were nowhere to be seen. Back then, when media asked industry insiders how they would evaluate Ripple, the answer they got was that it couldn't be evaluated because no actual product could be seen. Justin Sun's response to this was, "Google spent 6 or 7 years back in the day and didn't produce much either. We've been at it for less than 2 years. What do you expect from me?" That is very much his style. 2 years later, in September 2017, Justin Sun founded TRON, kicking off his first major explosion of wealth, the ICO. What is an ICO? To put it simply, it's giving yourself the power to print money and creating chips out of thin air. In the traditional business world, if you want to raise funds, you have to set up a company, give up equity, undergo audits, and face regulation. This process is slow and cumbersome, but an ICO is a completely different game. All I have to do is write a white paper, say I'm going to build a blockchain, type out some code on my computer, create 100 tokens out of thin air, and then use a small portion of those tokens to exchange for the real money in your hands. Note the crucial point here. The production cost of these tokens is practically zero. So in that TRON ICO, Justin Sun raised about 58 to 70 million US dollars in hard currency. It was a financing model that used a type of token, a virtual currency, to exchange for real money. And how were these tokens distributed? 40% were sold publicly, 15% were privately placed, and the remaining 45% stayed in Justin Sun's own hands. This meant that from the very beginning, he firmly controlled nearly half of the chips. As long as he used PR and market manipulation to pump up the token's price, his own zero-cost holdings would grow exponentially. By January 2018, TRON's total market capitalization had soared to 10 billion US dollars, aggressively breaking into the top 10 global cryptocurrencies. This is the underlying logic of how he accumulated his wealth. Friends, you can see it. Define the chips yourself and then make those chips valuable. But if you think he only knows how to issue tokens, you're underestimating him. After that, he played 3 even more ruthless cards. The first one was buying a casino. Having chips isn't enough, you have to control the venue where the chips are traded. So in 2019, he invested in the long-standing exchange Poloniex. In 2022, he used billions in capital from Hong Kong to acquire a stake in Huobi for about $1 billion, becoming the de facto controller of this veteran exchange. Later, Huobi was renamed HTX. What kind of business is an exchange? Regardless of whether the market goes up or down, as long as people are trading, there are transaction fees. This is the most stable cash flow in the crypto world. The second card is printing substitute vouchers. Stablecoins like USDD and TUSD are theoretically pegged one-to-one with the US dollar. Whoever controls the stablecoins controls the lifeblood of the entire ecosystem. Later, the TRON blockchain even directly helped issue a US dollar stablecoin, USD1, for the Trump family's project. The third card is buying traffic entry points. In 2018, he acquired BitTorrent, the very same BT used worldwide back in the day for downloading movies. What he wanted was the user base of hundreds of millions. And with that, Justin Sun's empire formed a closed loop. His own public chain, his own tokens, his own exchange, his own stablecoins, and his own traffic. Statistics suggest he holds over 60 billion TRX coins, accounting for about 60% of the total supply. Additionally, he possesses tens of thousands of Bitcoins, over 200,000 Ethereums, and roughly 90% of the shares in HTX. Bloomberg estimated in July 2025 that his net worth was approximately $8.50 billion, though some institutions calculate the market value of the core assets he controls to be over $43 billion. You might be curious, why are both of these figures considered assets, yet they differ so significantly? The answer lies in the fact that the valuation of this type of wealth depends entirely on the price the market sets for the tokens they have created. This sentence is the key to understanding the authenticity of the wealth of all crypto billionaires. Because Bloomberg calculates based on real numbers. If all 60 billion TRON coins held were to be sold off and cashed out, the market simply wouldn't have enough liquidity to absorb them, and the coin price would instantly crash and collapse. Therefore, the unit price of this coin must inevitably be discounted. Meanwhile, institutions are calculating based on a paper fantasy, simply multiplying the massive amount of tokens he holds by the real-time unit price currently displayed on the exchange screen. But don't forget, these tokens were minted by him, and he's the one running the exchange. So the question arises, since the tokens in his hands are highly concentrated, what does he rely on to maintain the price of these tokens and turn those paper figures into a continuous, ever-rising stream of cash? The answer is 3 words: attention. You will see that in Justin Sun's business philosophy, attention is a production resource. To attract global attention, he has put on one sensational cross-industry performance after another. In June 2019, Justin Sun won the 20th anniversary charity lunch with Warren Buffett for over $4,560,000, becoming the youngest and highest bidder in history. The global media went wild. Then, on the morning of July 23rd, he suddenly announced that, he had been hospitalized with sudden kidney stones and was canceling the lunch. 2 days later, he posted an apology on Weibo, saying he felt deeply ashamed of his excessive marketing and obsession with hype. In 2021, he spent $20 million at Christie's in London to purchase Picasso's Femme nue couchée au collier and $2 million for 3 self-portraits by Andy Warhol. In 2024, he spent $6.2 million to buy Catalan's Comedian, that banana taped to the wall, and then ate it in front of cameras from all over the world. His comment was that it tasted much better than other bananas. In 2021, he spent $28 million to win a ticket for a space flight on Bezos' Blue Origin. 4 years later, on August 3rd of last year, he actually boarded that ship and completed a suborbital flight. Friends, if you connect these events, you'll find they have something in common. Each one made global headlines, and each one was highly synchronized with the price fluctuations of his TRON coin. So in the crypto circle, there's always been a saying, he's not doing charity, nor is he just collecting art. He's doing marketing. The only difference is that while others pay for ad space, he pays for news headlines. So you see what kind of characteristics, personality, and figure Justin Sun is. If you follow this thread to the end, you'll find he has an extremely consistent logic. He doesn't win based on any single product. He relies on turning attention into capital, capital into chips, chips into assets, and then stuffing those assets into a regulatory-approved container. The new concept writing competition was a grab for attention. The cover of Yazhou Zhoukan was another. The lunch with Buffett was yet another. And as for the banana, the $6.2 million banana, well, that goes without saying. That was attention maxed out and then some. And what we are seeing today is just the latest application of this very same logic. Just think about it. Would a billionaire, a top-tier billionaire, need to post a 5,000-word long-form article just to fight a 30 million RMB civil lawsuit? No, they wouldn't. But if you understand Justin Sun's background, then it all makes sense. The court settles the money, but this article settles the narrative. 30 million RMB is less than 1,000th of his total assets. What he wants isn't this sum of money, but for people to know the story he wrote about Jing Tian, the Chinese entertainment star who is as mysterious as a riddle. Clearly, judging by today's viral trending topics, he has already succeeded. Alright, that's all for today. Friends, if you enjoyed my show, please do me a small favor before you leave. Don't forget to hit that like button. New friends, welcome to subscribe to Zhenguan Dian. Click that fan hype feature and share my show with more friends who want to understand this world. Every interaction of yours helps my carefully crafted show spread further and wider. And here, Zhenfei would like to thank you all in advance. Alright, thank you for watching, friends. Don't forget, we'll see you again at the same time this Saturday on Zhenguan Dian. Bye, bye.